What's up, bodyweight warriors, and welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk to you about training when we are low on time, when we have some time restrictions. Now this might just be generally if you've got a family, if you've got a very demanding job, if you just haven't got enough time to dedicate to training that you'd like to, or on those occasions where you don't have time to necessarily fit in your full hour plus of training, but instead you've got 30 minutes and you want to do something that's going to be really good bang for your buck. This isn't like the 5, 7, 10 minute workouts that you see on YouTube. I'm not going to hate on them because ultimately it's getting people moving, that's a good thing. But if you want long-term progress, especially towards developing strength, you're going to need to spend a little bit more time than that. Ultimately, 3 times a week of 30 minutes actually is a lot of time to do a significant amount of work, especially if we have lots of other stuff going on in our lives that we can't necessarily recover from a lot more training. So today I'm going to share with you a nice simple method that I often use with clients for various reasons, and I use myself when I'm low on time, that is just a really simple way of arranging your training. And that is using something called EDT, or escalating density training. Now, we'll explain that one in a second. So this type of training focuses on density, hence the name. Now, people often get density and intensity confused when we're talking about training. When we're talking about intensity, we're really referring to our maximum force output, how close we are to that 1 rep max effort. So for example, something that we could do 3 reps of and its absolute max effort is going to be much higher intensity than something that we can do 12 reps of. So when you see people refer to something like high intensity interval training, actually this isn't necessarily high intensity, it's high density. The movements we're doing, we maybe can do for 10, 20, 30 repetitions, they're not very intense, but we're squeezing a lot of them into a short period of time, making our training session very dense. And that's what density is. It's condensing a lot of work into a short period of time, which is kind of what we're after if we're low on it. To do this, we essentially remove 2 common training variables, and that is sets and rest. When we train for strength work especially, we're actually going to spend probably more than half the session resting. Sometimes we're resting for 2 or 3 or even longer if we're doing powerlifting, just take a nap in our rest periods. And ultimately, that means we're going to be spending a significant proportion of our time just sat around doing nothing. Now this is not a problem, this is actually essential, especially if you want to develop that maximal level of strength. So this method isn't particularly great for developing that high-end strength. However, with things like hypertrophy, building some muscle, and fat loss, actually having a reduced rest is a beneficial thing. So we can get kind of a double win here by squeezing more work into a short amount of time. We don't have to spend as much time training, but we can also get some better results when it comes to that hypertrophy and that fat loss. So enough rambling, what is actually the method involving? Now, this method, EDT, escalated density training, is actually something that I learned when studying from Poliquin, but I believe it was invented by Charles Stanley. So as I mentioned, we don't use traditional sets with EDT. Instead, we use time, whether that's 15, 20, 30 minutes. That's the time you have. The goal is to do as much work in that time as possible. For this, we generally choose 2 antagonistic movements. That means 2 opposing movements. We then have our reps that we need to do for those movements, and ultimately we just go back and forth and we try to do as many rounds as possible in the time window given. The reason this is called escalated density training is that initially this won't be such a hard thing. We can just go back and forth and keep doing the reps, but as we get 5, 10 minutes in, that fatigue is going to accumulate and things are going to get significantly harder. We essentially want to choose nice, big, compound, multi-joint movements. Ultimately, this is what's going to give you the most bang for your buck in your training anyway, but especially with this sort of training method. When we're talking about weight training, this is going to be squat, deadlift, bench, chin up, that sort of thing. When we're talking about bodyweight training, maybe we're going to look more at like pistol squats, natural hamstring curls, pike push-ups, still your chin-ups, basically your core kind of movements. The last thing to consider is the reps here. So unlike our normal straight set training, where we're gonna go pretty close to failure with most sets, here we don't wanna go anywhere near failure. Because we're focusing on doing a lot of work in a short period of time and we're keeping the rest pretty minimal, we need to stay away from failure so we can maintain that work for that 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. For this reason, we're gonna take our max repetitions for whatever it is that we're doing, and we're gonna half it. Say for example, we chose chin-ups as one of our movements, and we can do 8 reps maximum with our chin-ups. Then we would do our sets or our working kind of groups as 3 to 4 repetitions for this type of training. So we're nowhere near failure really, and this means we can go back and forth, but then as that fatigue builds, we're gonna get closer to failure as we work through that time. If you're particularly new to strength training, you may want to do this even more and go more to like 30 or 40%. So again, if we take that 8 rep max as our chin up, maybe we want to actually do 2 to 3 reps. So that's the rough outline of EDT. Let me give you some exacts here. Let me give you some examples that you can just go away and give a go, because they are quite fun. So I'm going to share with you a full body example, an upper lower split example, and then also a bodyweight skills example, because it can be useful for that as well. I'll chuck up those examples briefly as I'm talking now, but what I will do is put a quick PDF that you can download in the description. Let's link it down below, and that will give you the examples there, so you have something a little bit more concrete and in writing to reference of when you're actually doing some of this training. Before I finish up this video, I just want to mention a couple of things. So I did talk about not going to failure, and that's actually is an important point. This training method requires a little bit of a game plan, much like if you were doing, I don't know, a triathlon or something. We don't want to go too hard too soon, because it's going to get increasingly harder, hence the escalating, as we go through the time. So you want to keep this at a somewhat consistent tempo pace. And if you stick to those basic stuff, I'm sure you're going to have a great time with this program, but I will warn you, it can get pretty intense. And just because it's short does not mean it is easy. If you did enjoy this one, and if you are going to give it a go, please let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. Maybe if you have your own personal take, what do you do when you're low on time and you just need to get some training in? If you did enjoy this video, hit that thumbs up button and support the channel. Right next to it is that subscribe button if you want to join the Bodyweight Warrior Tribe. Don't miss out on any more future videos. But that's basically it for this week, guys. I'll catch you in the next episode. Have a strong week, and